What's going on, guys? Jack here, stage name Ninjak, and we are back with the much-awaited second episode with Jamvad himself on this road to #1 on the OU ladder. I call this series The Full Journey. It's never been done before. We're documenting every single step of the way, all the way from true noob, which is what I am, all the way up to #1 is the goal, and we're going to get it because the process works and we trust it. So we got our host here with us today, Jamvad. You can say hey.
Well, I think you're the host. But
that's true. I guess that's wrong.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? So that was like my cue to go.
I didn't do that the smoothest. I'm gonna be honest. I can maybe edit it.
No, there's no need. I think organic is good. You know, losing is good out here, people. We know this, so
that's right.
We make mistakes. No, but yeah, like I think it's important to kind of recap. First start with like where you are and kind of run me down. Obviously I sort of watched the progress and I've gotten the updates and whatnot, but for somebody who maybe saw the last episode and they didn't believe, they're like, I don't know, because it's understandable. I have a lot of people who have ended up messaging me for advice were initially like either completely dislike me or were just very skeptical of me.
Yeah.
So that's pretty normal. I think there's a healthy. I think you should be be picky, I guess, with people who you accept information from. I think that's #1 rule.
Mm-hmm.
So, my job here is to help you understand that this is the right source. And Jack is living proof of that amongst hundreds, probably thousands of other people. And so what has your journey been like up to this point? And kind of go over for the audience what you've been even focusing on.
Yeah, so recap, I had two things to do from the last episode. I was supposed to analyze every game for what I did well and what I learned. And that was it. Nothing fancy, just ask those two questions after every single game, download the replays, and I've been a stickler for downloading the replays. I actually talked about that in one of my videos about don't take shortcuts, and I'm not. I actually, you'll be proud, Jam, I rewatched a 133 turn battle like in its entirety, even though I finished it and I was like, gosh, I do not want to watch this whole thing, but I was like, it's like we need to, that's the process, so we did it. And
like that. Before you continue right there, but like that's how I know, and I was super excited to work with you in particular because there's just a knowingness. I've just worked with so many people at this point. I can just tell a person's teachability index very quickly. And so like I could just tell like this guy's not gonna cheat himself. Like he's not the type to cheat himself.
Yeah.
And so I really, really respect and admire that, and hopefully cool, you're getting results and all that is cool, but that is his biggest strength, his teachability, biggest strength. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so I've been a serious stickler for the rules, never taken shortcuts, and actually started an Excel sheet. I can pull that to kind of give you guys a view of what it's been like. So I didn't start it day one, which I'm kind of disappointed. I just was a little lazy. So I started right when I was at 1540. And you guys can see, I started applying the lessons, and I had a pretty quick little incline here and shot up, and I hit 1600. And I reached out to Jam, was like, dude, you were right. I hit 1600. Let's get it. I'm so pumped. And then you guys can see we kind of bounced back and forth a little bit, just hanging out at 1600. And then this happened. We plummeted hard. It was a confusing day. I was obviously, I've worked hard at really keeping this learner's mentality, but I don't even know how many games this was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 games in a row we lost. That's tough. And I'll be honest, by the end of it, I was like, all right, I got to stop. Clearly, I'm not in the right mentality. I could tell by the end, I was really losing focus. And as annoying as it was, I thought to myself, you know what? How many times have I seen on Jam's Discord server where someone's like, this week they hit their new high, and then like a week later they send a message saying I just plummeted 100, 200 points.
Right.
And every time he's like, "Yep, sounds like par for the course."
Right.
Apparently, guys, I too am par for the course, and I'm not gonna hide that. You can see we took a big hit, and I came back a little bit, but I'm really hanging out at 1500. But you know what? Jam says he's got something for me. I trust the process. At this point, I don't even have to think before I click download replay and start asking myself those questions. It's habit now. Every time. What did I do well? What did I learn? So I feel like we really kind of grasped that, and I've started to think more in terms of, okay, I can attack, defend, or switch here. What does each of those things do for me, and how do I get the most value? So I think that's kind of a pretty good summary of where I'm at, and I hear you have the stuff for me to get me moving again, build on the foundation.
Yep. I'd like to emphasize again, Jack's teachability index, right? Teachability index, to sort of recap if you're watching this for the first time, is a person's willingness to learn multiplied by their willingness to accept change. Don't be afraid of the multiplication sound if you're not a math person. All it means is let's take a 10, right? If you have a 10 willingness to learn out of 10, meaning I'll do anything to learn this information, right? You're willing to sacrifice whatever, and that doesn't just mean Pokemon, whatever thing you're trying to learn, right? And so let's say that's a 10 out of 10. That's often where most people are, particularly if they reach out to me or watch a video of mine. They're usually really willing to learn. Yet they wonder, well, man, I watched the video, I watched the video, and Jam said watch it, blah blah blah. Why am I not getting the results? And it's very likely because you have a very low willingness to change. And so the teachability index, remember, is two components: willingness to learn and willingness to accept change. And so if your willingness to learn is 10, but your willingness to accept change is a 1 out of 10, then you're only getting 10% in a way of looking at it of how much you're supposed to be getting. If it is a 10 out of 10, then you're getting 100%. And then you get results like, Jack and, Spooky, or just a ton of people who've sort of been burnt in the past, meaning they didn't do what the video said and then didn't see the results, and then just eventually sort of said, screw it, I'm just going to give in, saw the results, and like, oh my God, Jack, it finally worked. So I say all that to say that is his biggest asset right now. And so hopefully you as the viewer really hone in on that. I would not be wasting my breath and time emphasizing that so much if it was just some random thing, right? So the fact that I'm really harping on that should have you looking in the mirror and saying, like, how willing to change, how high is my willingness to change? If you're watching the video, I figure you're probably have a decent willingness to learn, at least a 7 or 8. But your willingness to change, you don't want to do what the video says. You don't want to change how you do things. And if you don't change, your results can't change.
How true that is.
So that's pretty much the first thing. But also, I want to touch on what happened to Jack and why that happens. And so I'm really glad you tilted. as horrible as that may sound. Like, I think losing is good sounds jarring to the ear for most people initially, because all their misconceptions about the word and what it means and what it's traditionally meant. But as I said, you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to change how you think. Ask questions, right? If you don't understand why it's true, ask, rather than that's not true. Okay. Keep getting the results you're getting and have a nice day, right? And so back to why that happens. So generally when a person, so what I've been having Jack work on is his ability to focus on the upside. We, particularly newer players, this is really important. Newer players and just new people are doing anything new. In order to start something new, you have to be a fool. Like you have to.
By definition.
Right. Inherently, you don't know. However, most people don't like the feeling of being a fool, but not realizing it's not a choice. Like you're a fool in many areas of your life, right? You don't do surgery on yourself. Like you're a fool in the realm of medicine, right? And so you may have your area of expertise, which is great, but it's not a bad thing that you're a fool in different areas. And so I think when people come into gaming spaces or whatever thing they're trying to learn, um, they believe or have an identity of being intelligent
Hmm.
or being capable or whatever word you want to use there. They expect when they perform or take action or focus on something, they're supposed to get the result that they desire in a fast manner, like in a timely manner on their time. And so what often happens with people, and this is why turnover rates are so high for new things that people do, unless they have a learner's mindset. Um, People tend to focus strictly on what they're doing wrong. And so, and there are a lot of reasons for this, but we don't enjoy when our actions don't align with our results. So if, I'm doing this action with the expectation of a result. You don't ever do an action without the expectation of a result. It's embedded into the reason you do it. So you brush your teeth expecting it to be clean. Like so in everything, if you decide like I'm going to play competitive Pokemon, there's the expectation that I will do well in it. It's embedded. And so when that expectation and the result don't align, it's painful. And so just as the animals we are, we don't like that. You don't want to step outside your door and then see nothing but people running around with guns, right? That's violating your expectation. You're like, oh, I thought, usually when I step outside in my neighborhood, it's either peaceful or whatever your expectation for that environment is. And so if you see people running around chopping other people to bits, it's the same place technically, but you're kind of not in the same place because the expectation is like, where am I? Like, why are people getting killed? And I know that's a really extreme example, but I want to really have it embedded in the memory and really, really emphasize, because I think if I gave a light example, people would go, oh yeah. But when you say, what did I do well, it overrides your habit of focusing on what you did wrong, because you feel like, well, what I did wrong is what I need to focus on to get better. I need to know what I did wrong. But the thing is, there's going to be a drastic imbalance in what you did wrong versus what you did right in the beginning, which is why you're a fool. You're going to do 99% wrong and 1% right. And so if you're focusing on what you did wrong as a novice, you will become discouraged very quickly and you will eventually quit, unless, again, one of the rare cases where a person has a learner mindset. And so in the beginning, I have a person really focus more so on having the right perspective, and not quitting by having them focus strictly on what they did well. And because when you're new, you need to build your knowledge up so much, and to build your knowledge up, a lot of that is just a lot of games, and a lot of those games are going to be a lot of losses. And so because I know that, I'm like, okay, how can I not, because I know they have to lose a ton of games, far more than they're going to win, how can I make that as pleasurable as possible so that they can get over this initial hump of getting the information? And, with that came, and again, there are a lot of reasons, right? That's a whole other video why, on a neural level, this is effective. That's when what did I do well? Now, what did I learn can also involve what you did wrong. It's just your interpretation of what you learned, but because the wording is different, it is received by your brain differently. So your emotions don't react negatively when you use the word learn versus how did I completely screw this up? Which could be the same answer, right? How did I completely screw this up? What did I learn? Could have the same answer. But because you're wording it differently, your emotions are different. And so when you're going into the next game, you may feel enthusiasm or excitement because it's like, oh, I learned. Learning is good. Okay. That's how that word is wired. Oh, okay. What did I do well? That feels good. Okay. So you go into the next game with confidence, and confidence is very important. Very important. And so that's basically the sort of explanation for the reason that's important. Now, why people tilt, kind of building on that, is generally if a person has a particular goal, and you don't have to tell me it's likely the case, where 1600 was something that Jack may have not expected to get as quickly as he did.
That's accurate.
And so when it's sort of like, let's use money, and you're like, maybe the most you've earned is, maybe 100,000 a year or something, right? Or $10,000 in 1 month. And you start doing these things, these slight changes, and in 2 weeks you earn $100,000 in 1 month. It's such a drastic rise that you sometimes haven't had the opportunity to really embed the habits that would be necessary to keep the money. And so you'll do some things like and then go back to old ways of thinking, because you're like, and it's such a human thing, right? You're like, oh shoot, like I've made it. Like, even though you want to be a learner, it's like, I've made it, right? And I figured it out. And you start deviating from what got you the $100,000 in the first place. And it's subtle. And so what will happen is, if the next month you do 20,000 is still twice what when you were used to. However, now how you're viewing that 20,000 is, it is a fifth of 100,000 rather than it's double what I used to make. So you feel like I'm losing, and so you're trying to get back to 100,000. So you, rather than focusing on what got you there to begin with, you're like, you've now attached your identity to, I now make 100,000 a month. And so rather than really focusing on what got you to 100,000, you're just focused on getting back there.
I think that's accurate to what happened with me.
That's again, I haven't come up with any of this information like this out of the thin air or from my brain or something. This is just literally just watching this happen probably hundreds of times at this point, right? And just mapping it and then doing the research. And so, in seeing those patterns, it goes, well, let's say Jack hit 1600, and because he was hovering there for a bit, now 1600 is something, he never thought he'd get to so fast. And now, and it's not like, it has nothing to do with being teachable. It's just a human thing. Naturally, like, now I'm a 1600 level player. And so when that happens, that is dangerous, because then when you dip, your words may say, what did I learn? What did I do well? But your emotions are, I need to get back to 1600. And so when you lose another one, you stop focusing on what got you there to begin with. Your entire focus is just now chasing back your identity, which is now, I'm a 1600 level player. What's going on? And so your expectations aren't mapping with your results. And then you lose the next one. Feel worse. Lose the next one. And you're like trying to like, what did I learn? What did I do well? What did I learn? But your emotions don't map the process. And so usually in moments like those, you want to take a step back and remember the goal which is at that point for you to learn not to maintain 1600. And
Huh.
so you're gonna tilt, and that always happens when a person breaks the peak, particularly people who break it really quickly. Um, they get attached to that because it's like, oh, I've surpassed what I could have fathomed this quickly. And so you get attached to that level, and then when you lose, you stop remembering losing is good, and your emotions start reacting like it's a bad thing that I'm below 1600, and then you lose again. That's a bad thing. Up, and now I'm 1500, which is higher than you were before, but now it's perceived as bad because you've tasted 1600. And so now all your focus is he's getting back to 1600 when you need to realize the goal is to get to number one,
Yeah.
not 1600. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just so funny because I was literally thinking like, what? He says this is common, which means I'm sure I've heard what it is that just happened to me. I'm racking my brain going, I'm still doing the process. I'm downloading my replays and asking. But if I think about it, I was much more frantic when I was watching the replays when I was falling down. I was stressed. I was not relaxed. I was
Yep.
tense and trying to figure out every little thing. And kind of part of what happened during that was I kept accidentally catching myself going, oh, I should have done X. And then go, oh, that's not the process. I'm not supposed to do that. But I had already kind of done it. And you're right. I stopped doing the thing that got me there in the first place.
I've done this myself, so it's not like I've made this mistake. That's how I learned. Some of my first insight into this was with myself, right? And so I had to figure out like one, and then that's when I realized tilting is more psychological than anything else. You cannot tilt if you're sound mentally, like at the time. You can't.
Yeah.
And tilting doesn't mean you lose the points. It means the feeling you get when you lose the black. Sucky, sorry. Feeling
I appreciate it. It's all good.
the really sucky feeling you feel when you tilt, because it's a very real emotion in any game people play. It's like a very real, and what the body or what the nervous system is interpreting that as is literally as if you lost your idea. It's as if you found out that, I don't know, something that you, let's say you're like the top performer, at your job or whatever, right? And you're like, oh man, I've been putting the work, great, da da da. And come to find out the boss has been forging your thing or something, and you're really not the top, but you're at the bottom. And there's this shift in reality where it's like what you thought was true is not. And there's this moment of disorientation, and it's gonna feel really bad because it's almost like where am I, right? Like I thought this was true, but it's not. Or is it true? And so that feeling is the same where it's like I'm a 1600 level player now, but your reality is not mapping to what you now believe about yourself, about your identity. And so your brain, your body responds to that, like that non-mapping of expectation and results with anxiety and stress. It's like, like this isn't what's supposed to be happening. This is, so that is something that I'm glad happened to you. So now I guarantee you it probably won't happen in the same way again, because now one, you have the experience, but also you have the understanding of why.
Yeah.
And so if you're tilting again, you're gonna remember this. I'm not doing this again.
Yep. Which kind of gets back to that first lesson. What did I learn through tilting? I learned why I tilted. So now next time I can recognize it and cut it off before it keeps going.
And so that's as far as the more mental aspect of the great things that happen. And so the next step, I do want you to just go on and find a battle.
Okay.
And plate. That's about it.
Alrighty.
What's your are you in the IDM room or something? Where can I find you out?
Yeah, I think I'm in the IDM room.
What altar are you on?
Ninjak 21. I can,
I'll see you. I got
oh,
you.
I can't chat. Okay.
And then
There we go.
and just if you find a game, you might have to invite me.
Okay.
Just let me know when you find one.
Will do. Normally it doesn't take too long.
Yeah, not to know you.
Alright, we're in.
Yeah, I can't see it, so you're gonna have to invite me.
Alright, so it's /invite, and are you MTV Jam?
There we go.
Alright, so what does my opponent have that is a serious threat? From my knowledge, primarily Weavile, unless it's an offensive Tyranitar, but otherwise this looks like a very stally team. Probably Unaware Quag, Slowking, okay. So my special threats are probably going to, because I have a special setup Tapu Fini, but until Quagsire goes away, that doesn't really follow. At least I don't think it does. Magnezone on Skarmory is really good if I can get the trap. And if I get Magnezone set up... Oh, he's going to go Quagsire, so I guess... I don't know how that interaction works with Body Press. I guess we'll find out. Quagsire's a problem. So I have to remember it's there, not set up unnecessarily. I think Melmetal takes a lot of value every time it comes in, because Double Iron Bash does a ton to everything but Skarmory. Okay, and then Dragapult is going to struggle because of Blissey, but we can just U-turn out and get Melmetal in repeatedly that way. And then I can just take value with Melmetal. And then to beat your... What do I need to not lose so that Weavile doesn't just sweep me? Tapu Fini is really good into Weavile. Okay. Because I can just Drain and Kiss every time, and with Leftovers Tick, if they swap, I'm pretty much going to be back to full. Okay. So Dragapult covers the Skarmory lead, and then I can U-turn out from Blissey, so we're going to lead Dragapult. Then he goes Slowking. Okay. Probably a Teleport. Let me get these calcs up, because I don't know how much a Shadow Ball does. Although with Regen, I don't think it's ever going to do enough. Dragapult, Slowking, Special Defense. Yeah, not with Regen, so no, because if I U-turn, they're going to regen everything and just reposition, so I might as well get a little bit of chip out of it. So we're going to Shadow Ball. Wow! Oh, okay, so they're not all Assault Vest, huh?
None of them are Assault Vest if they can use Teleport.
That's a good point. I'm thinking the Galar, but I was still thinking it was the Heavy-Duty Boot Special Defensive one, which usually does not have Ice Beam, so that's good to know. Right. But we've got a lot of value out. Thankfully, Dragapult wasn't a win condition. I think Melmetal can come in and Thunder Punch pretty freely, because I'm pretty confident. I guess Landorus doesn't want to come out. So this is a free Thunder Punch, because they're going to want to go Skarmory if I had to guess. Yep. Boom. Okay. And now they know it's banded. They know that I'm going to swap because they're going to go to Quagsire. Magnezone doesn't make sense, but Landorus gets me free setup. Do I lose a lot if they do stay in? What do I lose if he swaps? Potential Scald on Landorus. I don't really want that. Oh, he didn't swap. He roosted. Oh, I see. But we went first, so we can actually Thunder Punch before that happens next time. So we're going to U-turn here and reposition with Melmetal. Spikes, yep. I do not want to let you set up any further. Oh, gosh. How did that make... Oh, we swapped and they didn't. That doesn't mean I'm faster. 43%. Okay. Well, I can... Oh, that body press is disgusting in a Magnezone now. Oh, that's awkward. That's really awkward. Okay. I think I need to Thunder Punch again and look for Para. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Okay. So now I outspeed, which means I'm doing 42%. So I'm going to stay in because I don't want you to get any more. I don't want to go to Magnezone and get body pressed instantly. Okay, okay. Good. Alright, that's really big. Tyranitar does nothing to Tapu Fini. And is a free Draining Kiss for me. Oh, they went straight Quagsire. Interesting. Let's taunt. Make sure this isn't a curse variant. Okay, yeah, that didn't do anything. Since this is such a problem for me, Oh, okay, okay. Now, do I force Blissey into continue? Because if they read me, they could Seismic Toss. Does that matter? Kind of, because I want to keep this around for Weavile and Tyranitar. So Landorus looks good because I can get rocks up and then force him to have to waste a turn with Skarmory. Yep, Seismic Toss. Okay. And we have Rocky Helmet, so that's super good for us. Yeah, let's get rocks so that Skarmory... Oh, this is interesting. That Skarmory either doesn't have Body Press or it doesn't have Defog. Let's you turn out and go back to Melmetal because we outspeed. And I think at this point... Okay, no, they're roosted. Okay, in that case... Melmetal into a Skarmory. How much is everything doing? Oh, Superpower does nothing, so we definitely have to Thunder Punch. Alright. Oh, yes, yes. No way you stay in. And honestly, even if you do, I can just do this again. So I'm going to go Landorus. So I can take something's item. Yes, perfect. Okay. Excellent. I don't really want to get scalded, though. So... I really need to... This thing has to be dealt with, though. Okay, it's Rocky Helmet. Yawn. Okie dokie. Fini can come in, because you can't Yawn Fini. And we'll Draining Kiss to get some HP back. Yep. Blissey's going to take a little more chip. Fini staying good and healthy. I kind of want to get a Wish Off and a Landorus, but I don't know if now's the time to do that. Melmetal takes value, Jack. Melmetal takes value. That Skarmory's low enough, I can double Iron Bash. I can double Iron Bash for free. Yep. Yep. Excellent. Okay. Well, if we saw Dragapult, that would be huge. What? Quagsire doesn't take that, does it? Quagsire. Melmetal. You are not really doing much to me, but... Do I need to, though? If I get rid of Quagsire... Magnezone and Fini sweep. So actually, this is a really valuable thing for me to try to remove, especially now that Rocky Helmet's gone. Scald? Yep, but I'm on this in terrain, so you can't do that. You're going to give me Skarmory. Excellent, excellent, excellent. My opponent now has nothing for this Melmetal. And we, unless you are a weird super speedy variant, which that just wouldn't make any sense. Maybe? What do I lose by going Blissey? Potentially Weavile? Ah, but then I can Thunder Wave. No, I don't lose anything by going Blissey. Okay. We'll Seismic Toss. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Tapu Fini can set up on Slowking. Or, honestly, Tapu Fini can kind of do this to anybody, I think. I don't need this Blissey anymore. So, I'm going to just get a Para off. That's an interesting call. Okay, well, we're going to get a Wish Up. You're going to Ice Beam? Can you not take out my Blissey? Wait, no. Jack, Tapu Fini sweeps, just get it in. We'll get the wish, we should survive anything, and we can just start calm minding up. That is pretty unfortunate, but we have, it's pretty awkward. Okay. Well, we can drop this thing's attack. And then reset our Fini so that we can set up without a defense drop. Yep, okay. What's your item? Leftovers? If Landorus comes in again, he dies. So let's just remove his item. And, okay, that works too. That works too. Because at this point, Landorus can die, and then I'll just come in Fini and easily sweep. So we just start taking things items. That's the most valuable thing we can do. Okay, let's go Landorus. Choice specs. I kind of wondered after I saw how much damage it did. I mean, it did crit Dragapult, so I wasn't 100% sure. But I was like, how in the world does a crit Slowking KO my Dragapult? Alright, that makes a lot more sense. Let's Earthquake, just because I don't want it setting up for free. Power Up Punch. Okay, this is a good reason to Earthquake. Excellent! I like starting off on that.
How do you feel about that game?
I feel pretty good because obviously the beginning was very bad for me. That was a very bad trade of value. But in a way that I haven't really been great at before, I identified targets that were of value. Like I knew Quagsire and Skarmory were stopping Melmetal. But once I chipped them low enough, I realized, wait, I don't even have to outplay that Mon. All I have to do is go Melmetal because they have too little HP. And that's something kind of new for me. I don't frequently, or in the past, I haven't just been like, oh, now that this thing's at 40%, I can do X.
No, that you made a lot of quality decisions in that one. And so, generally, whenever, the reason I had you play is because I want to see where you are without any intervention from me, right? No, I want to see exactly how you're thinking now, so that I can determine, okay, what do you need? Because there is there's a framework, let's say it's maybe learn value first, or learn the 3 actions first, then value, then the 3 pillars, then team, so there's a hierarchy to how you learn the information and what needs to be mastered. And so initially, I was going to have you focus a bit on team preview, but I think indirectly, just from watching the videos, you kind of know how to do it.
Okay.
I'll focusing on it in a way where it's going to be a little better, but before any team preview discussion, I think it's going to be an important thing to now teach you how to really review a replay.
Okay.
And you're going to learn a lot from this. So the remainder of this probably just going to be this replay.
Okay.
But by the end, you're going to, no pun intended, you're going to receive so much value. A lot of things that you weren't aware of are going to become like, how did I not see that? And that is how you're going to review your own. So I'm going to share my screen, that way I can actually you're actually like going through the battle. I'm going through it and pretty much following with you. I think your team analysis was fairly accurate. I think Melmetal does take a lot of value, probably the most. I think Fini can potentially sweep as well, because when it gets really gets going boosting wise, Draining Kiss heals more or just about as much as Seismic Toss is doing. But generally you want to, if possible, obviously do as much with Melmetal as you can. Magnezone can 6-0 the opponent if Quagsire is, say, toxic. So let's say you manage to toxic the Quagsire with your Landorus or something, then that would have pretty much sealed the deal, because at that point you Iron Defense and nothing can beat Iron Defense plus Thunderbolt. So I'm assuming that's what you are, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So, I think the team analysis was fairly solid, but as I said, that's not, as the viewer, if you're not able to do that, that's fine. This is just a byproduct of, this is something I can't really control because generally people watch the videos and I do it in the videos, and
Yep.
it's hard not to mimic me. Um, and just like going a game. I know Jim what does team breed, but I'm just not gonna do it. Like it's sort of inherent in your beginning part, and so it's not a bad thing. I just want to reinforce that to those who don't know how to do it, and they're like, how come he knows how to do that? I'm like, we're gonna focus on that in a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but I believe you ended up the thing that was probably most threatening to you, most annoying, would have taken the most value. Say maybe. I'd say you'd probably want to keep your items. So I'd say Weavile
Hmm.
would likely be the most annoying member because if you lead incorrectly, it could take an item, and that's just the worst case right here is taking an item. Blissey doesn't hold any offensive, doesn't threaten you offensively,
Hmm.
which means it doesn't. It's there to stop you from taking value, but it's not really taking value from you. Comrie's the same. Um, Slowking, if you were expecting defensive like I was expecting, wouldn't really take much value. But even if it's not, you have a Blissey, so it still can't.
Hmm.
Tyranitar, you have Melmetal, and Landorus for the most part. Some Tyranitar run Ice Beam as you learned, so I would be careful. Um, Weavile, um, can remove people's items. You don't want Finny's leftovers being gone. You
Hmm.
don't want Metal's Choice Band gone. You don't want Magnezone's leftovers gone. And so
Right.
those are your only three switch-ins. So that's something you don't want. And Quagsire, again, much like Blissey, has no offensive capabilities. It's just there to absorb and hits and stop you from taking value from the opponent. And
Hmm.
so we're gonna go into the beginning and start this off right here. And so your logic here was what exactly?
So, on the one hand, I'm very used to people going Blissey anytime they see Dragapult. So at
Okay.
first I was like, well, I'll just U-turn. However, a lot of Slowking, like the defensive variant, which is what I have seen much more of, will use
Mm-hmm.
Teleport because Dragapult can't one-shot, and because of their ability Regenerator, they'll get 33% back. I was like, well, if
Mm-hmm.
I U-turn and deal 17%-ish,
Mm-hmm.
they're just gonna, I'll reposition, and then they'll reposition to beat me in terms of initiative, and they'll regenerate 100% of what I just dealt. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, well, in that case, I should use Shadow Ball because even if it only does like 50%,
Mm-hmm.
if they're just going to teleport, at least when they get the regen, they'll still be chipped down about 17%. And so that's the most value I can get out of this turn from my analysis.
Okay. And so let's scale. What we're gonna do differently in this review process is we're going to really hone in on the three actions, right? Just as a recap, all Pokemon is taking value using the three actions. And how do you know how to take value? By using the three pillars, right?
Hmm.
You have to have the knowledge, the awareness, and the skills. So that enables you to take the most value. Now, in English, that means if you're the reason one player beats the other is because they performed the three actions, attacking, defending, and switching, better than the opponent. And the reason they can perform those three actions better than the opponent is because they have likely higher knowledge, higher skill, and higher awareness. It's not always true, but in
Hmm.
most cases, over time, meaning like, you may lose to somebody that's technically worse than you in one particular battle, but that person generally won't be higher rank than you on average. Um, so they may lose more than they win,
Hmm.
or lose far more than you lose, but happen to beat you in that particular game. And so, um, again, in English, the better player is generally the one who knows how to take value by attacking, defending, and switching. And they know how to take value because they have good knowledge, solid skills, and solid awareness, or at least higher than the opponent
Mhm.
in that game. Now, the reason I say that is in each turn of a battle, you have a decision to make. Am I attacking here? Am I switching here? Am I defending here? Right?
Mhm.
In the case of Dragapult, you don't have the defend option. It doesn't have recover, it doesn't have protect, anything like that. So you only have attack and switch for Dragapult. Now, within attacking and switching, you have how many options? Within attacking, you have how many options?
I had all four of my moves.
Right. And within switching, how many options do you have?
I guess two. I have U-turn and then the hard switch.
Well, switching has less to do with U-turn isn't a switch. It's
Oh,
hard
I see.
half the U-turn is an attack, right?
I see.
But
Okay.
it has the after effect of switching, but U-turn is choosing to attack.
So I guess switch, I had five options because I could have gone to one of the other five Pokemon.
Yep. So with if you choose to attack, not only do you have to choose to attack, but you have to pick the right attack.
Mhm.
If you switch, not only do you have to switch, but you have to pick the right switch. And so the reason I say that is to provide a little more insight and a little more depth because it's not just about choosing the right action, but choosing the right choice of the action.
Mm.
So here you went for an attack, which was Shadow Ball. However, you had U-turn, Draco, and I think what was your other move?
Flamethrower.
Flamethrower. I don't think we need to do much explanation why Flamethrower wasn't the best. It doesn't gain him a lot of value. Nor does Draco Meteor. And so his options are U-turn and Shadow Ball. And of those attacks, he chose Shadow Ball. Now, Slowking ended up killing you. Choice spec Slowking is really not a set, so I don't really fault you for that. Nor do I'm not sure if it would have KO'd you if without the crit.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, maybe not. No, I'm not sure. Dragapult is pretty frail, so I think it would have, but sometimes, rolls might go your way. The
Yeah.
reason this isn't so bad is because Dragapult, as you said correctly in the beginning, wasn't one of your win conditions, so um, it was one of those things where you can still win the game even if the worst case scenario of Dragapult dying happens. Now, a layer beyond that is, well, if I do X and my opponent does Y, what then? And so you chose to click Shadow Ball. So now you have a question to ask. If I click Shadow Ball and my opponent does not stay in and goes to, say, Blissey,
Mhm.
how bad is that for me? If my opponent switches and goes to Tyranitar in the Shadow Ball, how bad is that for me? Right?
Mm.
So these are things you're going to really need to consider, which are going to inform which action you pick.
Okay.
So Shadow Ball, you did this somewhat. I just think you didn't go
To the next
after,
step.
right? So you're like, if I can get the regen and blah blah blah, but you didn't go well. If he does not stay in, because I think you made the play on the assumption that it's almost a guarantee that he'll stay in.
That's true.
But what if he switches and Blissey comes in? What is the Blissey gonna do? Let's say I switch to guard myself against the Blissey with my own Blissey and he teleports. Then Weavile is in.
Yeah.
Or something. You know what I mean? So that's gonna come in time. But when you're watching the replays in particular, that's how layered the more layered you go like that in each turn. So when you're done with reviewing that game, you'll come out a monster. Because the hacker mentality where it's like really digging for that data. Like the deeper you dig, the more data is gonna come out. You're gonna come out with the more data you come out with, the better you're gonna perform.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so when right here you click Shadow Ball, he stays in. Ice Beam again. I don't think in any other situation. I don't think this was a poor play or anything, right? Generally they'll teleport or future sider. So I don't think this was a poor decision. if you U-turn, you'd have to know what to do next, which would have, if he teleports, you'd have to know like what to go to
Mm-hmm.
protect from teleport and all that. But Shadow Ball is a fair play, so no faults here. The learning begins here. So you go to Melmetal, and you were thinking what here?
So here I was thinking, now I'm quite confident that Slowking has to swap because basically any move I click will kill it.
Mm,
And I was thinking in my head, well, what do you do for a Melmetal? You send in your defensive wall normally. And I frequently see Rocky Helmet Skarmory trying to catch your double iron bash. Or you
right.
could go Quagsire, which probably takes that quite comfortably since it 4x resists it. So
No.
here I thought, well, I'll make a read and I'll click Thunder Punch because unless you go Quagsire, I do a lot of damage.
Well, double Iron Bash is not 4 times.
Oh, it's not?
It's yeah, it's just a water type. But
Good point. Sorry.
no, it's fine. I don't want you making that's a piece of knowledge right there.
Yeah.
But more importantly, what's that more fundamental question is why would he need to switch in the first place?
Um, I guess his Slowking wasn't necessarily doing a whole lot for him anymore. I guess it's offensive, so it kind of pressures Landorus. So he might want to hold it to try to catch a read Ice Beam on a Landorus. But why would I ever go Landorus on Slowking?
Why would you switch out versus what would be on your team that would switch out versus Loki?
I guess nothing at this point.
17%, or if you regen 40 something percent Slowking, or 50, everything on your team either kills it or sets up on it.
That's true.
So, what would his incentive to switch be?
I guess he really shouldn't have had one. At that point, his Slowking was essentially dead. Unless he pulled some double play. It would have been very difficult for him to get his Slowking back to a point where it was useful.
Correct. And so that's an important bit of information to understand because something I noticed was that you assumed because it's low, he must switch.
Yeah.
Second thing I noticed was you're trying to predict what he's going to do rather than focusing on what your game plan is.
Hmm.
So what that looks like is, and this is very common, particularly where you are now, this is going to be a big shift that'll push you far beyond here.
Uh-huh.
Oftentimes players go into games the mindset of, I think he's going to, so I'm gonna. I think he's gonna, so I'm gonna. I think he's gonna, so I'm gonna. Which is the antithesis of having a game plan. That is called being reactive.
Uh-huh.
So you're focused strictly on the opponent, meaning have a game plan but ignore it to focus on what the opponent is going to do. And your goal the entire game is to outpredict the opponent, which in a more, I guess, down the line sense, the ultimate goal in the game is to never have to predict. Prediction puts power in the opponent's hands. You don't know what he'll truly do. You may make a prediction and he doesn't do what you expect. And then the question is, how much value do you lose if he doesn't do what you think he should? So in this, Melmetal was the correct play. However, he has 2 options if you double Iron Bash. That's your strongest move, correct?
Uh-huh.
He has 2 options. What are his 2 options if you use the move that takes the most value generally?
I guess he could sack this or switch.
Okay, if he switches, what does he do?
Generally, they would go to Skarmory or Quagsire.
Okay, and what happens if he goes to Skarmory?
If he goes to Skarmory and I double Iron Bash, I take a third of my health and I do roughly 40%. And then
go ahead.
And then because he has, or I assume he has Roost, I would not want to keep double Iron Bashing and killing myself. So he basically gets a free hazard up if I double Iron Bash and he gets Skarmory in on a double Iron Bash.
And so if he gets, if if you get Skarmory on a double Iron Bash and he has Rocky Helmet, let's say,
Mhm.
and you do 40%, what are your options?
At that point, I'm probably, well, one, I could try to go Magnezone and Trap, which I guess if he doesn't swap means I can potentially take a lot of, I'll at least get a Skarmory.
Right.
Or I could go Landorus to try to knock off and chip since I knew that Skarmory was going to be a problem for Melmetal. But I guess Magnezone's the better swap because unless he swaps, I basically just take a Skarmory.
Correct. Why would Landers make sense?
Landorus really doesn't make sense unless I've already lost Magnezone, I guess. Or Magnezone's too weak to come in.
Correct. So, what's Magnezone purpose on the team?
To trap a steel type and just basically get at least one kill, hopefully two because it can be behind a sub.
Well, what is the primary purpose of using a Magnezone?
I guess it's a defensive option. It prevents my opponent from taking value from me. Its primary purpose is to trap steel types, and generally I view that, I guess, as defensive because I'm trying to prevent that steel type from taking value from me.
So, Magnezone's purpose is to trap, because everything is specific, and you want to be. That's what I meant. Where it's like now you're gonna really start digging, because then you'll be able to remove a lot of your own mistakes.
Okay.
Because notice, I have not told you anything yet. I'm just asking you. So you have the answers. It's just that your awareness in certain moments are low, and you're gonna see how. Honestly, you probably could have won this game in half the time.
Okay.
And you're gonna see why. So mind you, I have not told you anything yet. So if Melmet, they said a Magnezone's purpose is to trap a steel type. What's his steel type?
Skarmory.
So we're gonna play this turn here. You go for Thunder Punch, 78%, and you switch to Landorus here. So let's go one turn back. So you choose Thunder Punch, and we're gonna go back and talk about Thunder Punching versus Double Iron Bashing. But we're gonna follow this trail to Skarmory. You Thunder Punch, you quote unquote get that prediction correct, and so now you have every turn you have 3 actions. So in this case, obviously it's 2 because you can't. Your choice band is so you can only attack or switch. So
in this circumstance, I'm gonna just own up to it. The reason I went Landorus is because normally when I play these kinds of people, they never leave the steel type in knowing that I could go Magnezone. And so I thought, well, he's not going to keep it in. He's going to bring in something that beats my Magnezone, so I'll go Landorus to confuse him. And I was trying to read him and predict him rather than focus on my game plan.
Correct. But for a step further, you said he's going to go to, and that's what I said, really, really hone in on being specific, because generalness in Mons is a weakness.
Okay.
So, and I'll show you what I mean by asking you this. You said he was going to go to, the reason you didn't go Magnezone is because people tend to switch. If you went to Magnezone, what were you fearing?
Actually, I guess nothing, because Weavile was the main threat. And he can't, even if it did go Weavile, I still win that matchup and get a free body press.
Correct.
What would worst case for me be? I guess Quagsire or Tyranitar with Earthquake. But in either of those scenarios, I have a Landorus that beats that.
Well, you went Landorus expecting a switch. What was his switch? What would his switch have been on Melmetal?
On Melmetal, I guess it would be Quagsire because he presumably knew that I was choice band locked into Thunder Punch.
Right, but I'm saying, so reel back. So you click Thunder Punch on Skarmory coming in. He has the option to Roost, Maple Spike, or switch his Skarm out. You don't attack the Skarmory because you expect him. You don't attack, but you also don't go to Magnezone, right? Because you expect him to switch. Because if he roosts and you go Magnezone, the Skarmory's gone.
Yeah.
Which is one is only ground resist, but that's another conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But you remove the Skarm if you go Magnezone. So you allow Magnezone to do what it's on the team to do, which is remove the Steel type. But instead, you decide to go Landorus because you expected him to predict Magnezone. But now we're saying that the only thing that could have coming on Magnezone was Quagsire, right?
Which doesn't actually threaten my value.
Well, less so threaten your value, but how does Landorus solve the problem of him switching to Quagsire?
It doesn't really, because I had said earlier I didn't want to get Scald burned, even though I wanted to remove the item.
And so your solution to him switching actually didn't make sense.
It didn't even answer what I was trying to do.
So that's where I said, like, you're going to pay attention to the why rather than saying something general like, I know he's going to switch and I'm going to predict him.
Mm.
What is he going to switch to? You have to know the answer to that, right?
Uh-huh.
What is he going to switch to? Magnezone beats 5 out of his 6 members. And if he went to Quagsire, Landorus loses to Quagsire.
Yeah.
The only time the Landorus play would be a good one is if you have Toxic. I don't know if you do.
I don't.
If you could Toxic his Quagsire, then Magnezone sweeps. But I know that's not what you were thinking at the time. And you don't have Toxic. So you going to Landorus literally got you nowhere.
Yeah.
As you're going to see right here. You go Landorus. He roosts. And watch how this plays out. He roosts. You U-turn. Mind you, you turn back to Melmetal.
Right.
Why would you go Melmetal there?
In my head, I had this false sense of... I thought I was faster. And so I was like, oh, well, I know that Thunder Punch kills at this range. So I'll just U-turn into Melmetal. Of course, I also know that Skarmory does normally have Iron Defense. And you're right, I had the freest Magnezone ever. Because I knew he didn't swap. He had no way of getting out of my Magnezone.
Okay, which is good. But why would you think... Let's say he roosted there. Why couldn't he have just switched?
You mean when I brought Melmetal back out?
Right. You said it's because you thought you were faster. He ended up using... But he could have roosted. But he ended up using Spike. You said, okay, it's because I'm... What's stopping him from just switching to Quagsire here?
Nothing.
So the Melmetal doesn't even solve the problem. Now, fortunately for you, he stays in. And I think he might have had Shed Shell. I don't remember if you knocked this thing's item off. But the point is, this Skarmory could have died a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Now he has a Spike up. You're here Thunder Punching and hoping for Paras, which you ended up getting. But you have an entire Magnezone sitting there that literally is on the team to kill Skarmory.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And so that's how that asking questions component and really figuring out, like, why am I even doing this? Why am I doing this action? If let's say I was playing this game, turn 6 would look very different for me than you. Not because in some grand way I'm just a superior being, but because I take different actions.
Yeah.
That's the only difference that would have been. I'd have just taken different actions. And that's the only reason that's the only difference between you and the guy at the top.
Uh-huh. Well, I can correct that difference.
Correct. And the more you correct it, the closer you'll get to the top. The better you get at that, it's inevitable you're going to be the top. Inevitable.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you must every turn consider how are you taking value and not forgetting that. And so this was just an awareness moment, which again, that's the pillar that is last to be built. But as you see right here, he ends up going to Tyranitar. Lord knows why he's not going to his Quagsire, to be honest. So he's giving you a lot of free value. You should have went Quagsire to begin with. That's your
Yeah.
first Pokemon you should have went to. Should have never went Scarm. Um, but which is why I didn't agree with the Thunder Punch. But he ended up going Scarm. And
Hmm.
this is the lower ladder, so he doesn't know what he's doing very much,
Hmm.
right? And so what you have to sometimes remember is you can win a game not because you played well, but because they played worse.
Yeah.
Which is why reviewing replays, even when you win, is so important. Because look how many things you're learning, even though you completely destroyed him.
Yeah. And we were only at turn 6, and I've already learned several things.
Right. And so double iron bash from your Melmetal destroys your opponent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Quagsire is the biggest switch into Melmetal he has on the team, not Skarmory. Skarm can get Thunder Punched. Skarm can get Magnezone Trap. Quagsire is what you need to worry about.
Hmm.
And for this team, Quagsire isn't very common, but on a team like this, I'd probably get a Toxic Landorus.
Hmm.
But for opposing Landorus, which I think you struggle with, but also Quagsire. So I definitely go Toxic. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure what's your fourth move.
It's a U-turn, knockoff, stealth rock, earthquake.
Yeah, I'd take knockoff off and put Toxic.
Okay.
Uh, Superior. Like, there's nothing knockoff really damages that. I mean, it's nice to have the knockoff for Scarm situations. That way, if they have Shed Shell, but Shed Shell is really rare. It's
Okay.
generally going to rocky helmet.
Yeah, because then that does give me a Quagsire option. And frankly, I don't
Right,
think I click knockoff all that frequently. And when I do, it's
right,
normally like I'm on my back foot trying to stop something that's about to sweep. Whereas if
right,
I had Toxic, I could do the exact same thing. And I could do it preemptively. I wouldn't have to wait till that point. That makes sense.
right. And just like structure your teams very weak to ground types. So I'd think you need it.
Hmm.
But that aside, so he doesn't go Quagsire, which is fine. So we're gonna allow this to play out. You Thunder Punch, cool, cool. Now you understand why Double Iron Bash was superior.
Uh-huh.
Because even if he goes Armory, what then could you do to solve that problem?
Just go Magnezone.
Boom. Simple. And then Skarm would be gone. Then you could just double Iron Bash away.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go up to here with the paralysis. Now Tyranitar is in, you end up, I believe, going to Finny. Because you said Tyranitar couldn't touch Finny. Is that true?
Um, well, since you're asking me, it must not be, but I thought Earthquake would do like 30, 40%, and then Draining Kiss would give me too much recovery.
How much recovery would Jennings give you?
I was thinking in my head somewhere between 20 to 30%,
And how much is he doing?
30 to 40,
Are you winning there?
I
Plus
guess.
sand.
Oh, that's true. No, I guess not.
And so what did you say in the beginning of the game Finny's purpose was?
I said Finny swept if we got rid of Quagsire, and also that Finny stopped Weavile.
Okay. And so to stop Weavile, what do you need Finny to be?
Very healthy. Or
Is
boosted.
it well, you don't need to be boosted to
Oh,
be Weavile.
that's true.
Um, but you do need it to be healthy, correct? And so you're now using Tapu Fini to try to beat a Tyranitar. Is Tyranitar an issue?
No.
Is this a proper trade? Trading with Tapu Fini's health to beat a Tyranitar.
No.
Okay. And so that's an important. You switched, which is a correct play, but your switch wasn't the best.
Was
And
Landorus better here?
I mean, something like that, honestly, I would have just left the Melmetal in. I don't know what you were fearing from Tyranitar. Or
Huh.
just again. But um yeah, you could have went Landers because he'd never ice beam there, so Melmetal. So you could have
Yeah.
gone to Landers. You turned out knowing that, or just Earthquaked because he's at 41%. he's gonna die. So Landorus would have been perfect there. Um, or you could U-turn out if you expect him to stay in for Ice Beam and then go back to Magnezone or Melmetal. Because if he leaves it in, he clearly has something to hit you.
Hmm.
So you just go Magnezone or something. But there are several ways to get around. Tyranitar was not a problem, right? It didn't
Yeah.
take a lot of value. It didn't stop very many of your mons. But here, where if you're paying attention, he ended up switching out to Quagsire finally. So Finny, it ended up looking like you did the correct decision,
Uh-huh.
but you're using Tabo Finny, which only does maybe 20% with Draining Kiss, while he's doing 40% with Stone Edge
Hmm.
and Sand. So you're not even getting leftovers. So he beats you before you beat him.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so Quagsire is here. In now, I think you end up draining kissing here, I think, or
I think
something like
so.
that. Or you taunt. No, you taunt here, I believe. Why'd you taunt?
Oh, because I was afraid of Curse Quagsire.
Okay. What were your other options?
So I guess I could have attacked,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know how much that does. I would
Mm-hmm.
guess like 20 to 30% with Scald. I could go Melmetal, but that's not beating Quagsire. Magnezone isn't beating it. Blissey doesn't really beat it. And because I didn't have Toxic on Landorus, that didn't really beat it. I guess I really needed to attack.
And so everything else loses to this Quag. Well, does your Blissey have Toxic?
No, it has a Thunder Wave.
Right. So your Blissey even loses to Quag.
Hmm.
So Finny is the only thing on your team that can beat this Quagsire. So had you scalded, it does probably like 35% or so, 35,
Oh, okay.
40%. So that's defense Quagsire. Um, if you had scalded, what do you think he'd try to do after that?
Recover.
What could you do knowing he'd try to heal?
Taunt.
Right. And
Uh,
so if you did that and he lost let's say he's at now 65%, do you think he can switch comfortably into your Melmetal anymore?
no, because now 2 Double Iron Bashes will take it out.
Right. What would his Melmetal switch into be if Quagsire was that low?
I guess it has to be Skarmory at that point. Or
Okay.
Sack is Slowking.
Not what would he sack, saying what would his answer, what could stop Melmetal at that point? Let me word it differently.
Nothing.
Correct.
Hmm.
So you did a bit of this down, like a little down the line. So it's not like you weren't capable of this, and I remember you pointing it out.
Hmm.
It's just in certain moments really thinking about like, was this even the right action to begin with? If it's the right action, was this even the right option of that action? So
Uh-huh.
was this the right attack? Was this the right switch? You know? And so
Hmm.
when you ask yourself those questions, the answer comes. And so you end up losing 21% just to taunt the Quagsire that's at full. Fearing Curse when you beat Curse 1v1.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, especially because Terrain, I think, was about to end. I could be wrong on that. But, no, I don't think, because that's 3-6. I don't think Terrain is right. And so Landorus comes in, which is fine. I don't think that's an incorrect play. I don't think Landorus is decent, but it's not like super high value here. And so again, I was watching. I was like, let's see if he finally realizes what Magnezone is here for. But you end up going for U-turn. I think going back to Melmetal,
Oh man.
allowing him to get back to full. And I don't know why he's staying in to begin with. Unfortunately for you, he's playing worse than you. So it's
Yeah.
not that you're making good reads. Now that's the illusion of it. But he's
Right.
predicting him. Like, no, the opponent should never leave Skarmory in here.
Yeah.
Like he has the Quagsire that literally beats Melmetal. And his
Uh-huh.
helmet too, which makes it worse. So he's just letting you kill his Skarm. Now here, you end up switching to Landorus. instead of
Yeah.
attack. Why?
Well, because I kept thinking in my head I wanted Landorus against the Quagsire to knock off its item, which I was presuming was leftovers. Even though I literally admitted it would really stink if Landorus got burned. Although it doesn't. I guess it doesn't. No, it does, because Landorus is actually really good with Earthquake once Skarmory's gone.
But even then, does Landers beat Quagsire?
No.
Let's say you knock his item off. What then?
I have to go to Finny and essentially do what I would, like if I just gone to Finny, I essentially get to Finny a turn late. 2 turns late.
And then when you go to Finny, what does he do?
Just swaps out.
Do you get a lot of value?
No.
Did you hit the Quagsire?
No.
Right.
Or I guess I hit it once with knockoff, which didn't do very much.
Right. Because he probably is just going to recover after that. Because you have
Right.
to use the Finny, he recovers. Right. So you end up going for Thunder Punch here, get full powered. And then you go to Landers. I believe he stays in here. Oh no, this time he goes quiet. So I think you knock his helmet out. That's when you find out his helmet. Like right there would have been a great turn of Toxic. Back would have just won. But yeah. So Eon's here, and I believe you hard switch, which I'm not sure why you hard switched here. You could have U-turned.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
And so your Earthquake's probably knowing that you had to switch. Everything is grounded. This is a good play on him. I think you should be draining kissing because your Finny is a lot lower than it should be.
Oh.
For Weavile, you go Melmetal here, which is, I think is correct. I think right here you started to, I think you had a good moment here. Because I remember you, after the draining kiss, you stopped and said, Melmetal, what takes value? I think that was the first time in a long time you're like, I kind of snapped out of the hypnosis and go, whoa, what takes value? And then you went to metal here. And immediately when you did that, you notice how the game starts to shift, because what happens here? You kill your first Pokemon.
Yeah. And I realized, wait a second, nothing can take my double Iron Bash anymore.
And see, look how this starts to play out differently. The moment you ask, whoa, how do I take value? The game literally shifts. Melmetal has been the biggest threat to your team. You just started to realize this moment. You really could have killed the Slowking here, but I don't know how slow your Melmetal is, but I get the caution, whatever. And then right here, good seismic toss, cool. But right here, you started to forget about value once again. Like you did well and shift back into habits, which is why this part of the training is going to require a lot of focus on that.
Okay.
And so right here, let's take a pause and take a sec.
Okay.
What is Blissey needed for?
Nothing. Not anymore.
Okay, cool. And so let's pay attention to what you do. You go for Thunder Wave. Do you have Teleport?
I don't.
Okay, what are your options on the Blissey? Thunder Wave, Seismic Toss, Softball, and what?
Wish.
Wish. Okay. And so you Thunder Wave here. Since you don't have Teleport, that's fine. So you go for Wish here, I believe. And so then you end up going to, I believe, Tapu Fini, which I don't think is inherently bad or anything like that. Tapu Fini, because, I mean, Magnezone won here anyway. But you go to Tapu Fini, you get to heal. That's fine. The whole point, I think this was a solid play, primarily because now, I mean, Weavile probably is never winning anyway, but at the very least, you get Tapu Fini up, which does beat the remainder of his team. Okay. Except, it turns out he respects Slowking, so maybe he could have tricked or something. But yeah, beyond that, your team's pretty much weak to Fairy. Everything on your team wins except Blissey. Even Blissey sort of wins if you just Seismic Toss. Now here you end up, and I think this was the first time, I think you Draining Kiss here. Note, that was a critical hit. How much did that do?
Oh gosh, I didn't catch that was a critical hit. 25%?
Remember earlier in the game you tried to beat Tyranitar with Tapu Fini.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a crit, you wouldn't have even done 20%.
Would have been like 17.
So you're getting nothing back from Draining Kiss. And he's taking 10 from Stone. Fortunately for you, he misses here. But this was not the play, as you can see.
Yeah.
Essentially, he was about to throw away the wish you just passed.
Uh-huh.
Because he would have done a 60 to you with the defense drop. Right. And so now you've learned Tyranitar is way too bulky for you to be trying to beat unboosted. You use Finny to beat it, that unboosted Finny to beat it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up going Landorus here, which is fine. But the most important part here, what do you think of the 3 actions as a player?
Right here, I think I should attack because if it wins in all circumstances, if he goes Weavile, I don't know if it OHKOs, but it probably comes pretty darn close. If he goes to Slowking, it'll 2-hit if it doesn't 1. I know I outspeed because he's paralyzed and Landorus is just fast. So that kills. So I think I should Earthquake.
Okay. Let's see what you do.
Oh gosh.
Losing is good. Like, this is a good thing. But I just want to show you how much you allowed this game to drag. Like, how much value you were leaving on the table.
Uh-huh. He must get full parrot here.
I think so. I think he did get full parrot.
Because I realized, I know I eventually clicked Earthquake. Oh man, I knocked off.
What were you fearing there? Like, why would knockoff be better than Earthquake there?
It never is, but I think at the time I was thinking, oh, Landorus is dead. I just want to get Feeny in full health. I'll just remove an item, just to remove an item. Even though Earthquake kills.
Yeah. Correct. And so here, you finally click the thing that takes the most value. He doesn't have a ground resist, no switching.
Yeah.
And then he makes a silly decision going Slowking first. But you end up just killing him here. Then he finally makes it to the Weavile, which what he should have done to begin with. But since he wasn't heavy duty boost, Earthquake would have killed him. So he had no Earthquake switchings. He never did once Skarm died. And so now you end up sweeping with Landorus in the end game. It's a 5-0. The only thing you lost was the Dragapult turn 1 to the surprise Ice Beam. So you technically dominated. However, you can now see after reviewing that win, not only a win, a dominant win, how many errors.
Yeah.
And now you understand why I don't have you focusing on your errors first.
Yeah, because if you try doing that at 1200, 1, you might not even know what you're doing wrong, and 2, there's so many.
That you're going to be like, man, I thought I was doing something. Like...
And I did. I finished this game and thought 5-0. That's how to start it.
Like, oh man, I thought I was killing it, and then I go through a game like that with you, and you're like, I give up. Like, I'm never gonna... Right? So
yeah.
It's important to really establish losing is good, mistakes are good. Like, none of this is bad. You're supposed to not know. Why would you know?
I mean, I wouldn't until I identify it.
Right. But the biggest part is I rarely, if ever, told you anything. All I did was ask you questions for 40 minutes.
So my knowledge was there. I just didn't have the awareness of it.
Correct.
I knew it because it wasn't like, oh, I didn't know that was an answer. I just didn't know to do that answer in the moment. It didn't occur to me, wait, I have an answer.
Right. It's not that you didn't know Earthquake kills Tyranitar. Your awareness was just pretty much at 0 in that moment, and you knocked off.
Yeah.
And so this is how you're going to be reviewing games now. Now, the thing is, you don't have to do as many of these, because this takes a lot more time.
I was just about to ask that.
No, ideally, when you're practicing now, I'd say this kind of review, particularly if you have a longer game, I'd say, at 3 a day. And then everything else will just be your usual. What did I learn? What did I do well? But like this kind of practice where you're like, what action should I take? Okay, I picked one. Which of those choices of that action should I take? and really dive in and really challenge yourself. This is where it gets challenging. You're really going to be challenging your mind. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to become, this is where you're starting to develop foresight,
Uh-huh.
where you're really going to start to be able to, and then in the next session, we're going to really dive in on how to structure a game plan before all of this. But
Okay.
right now, I still want you to hone your 3 actions.
Okay. Okay. I can do that.
Oh, I have no doubt. Because I just how quickly you progress, I was like, yeah, it just needs to. I could tell it's just like those micro moments
Uh-huh.
of, and you managed to get to 1600 not knowing this. So imagine how, dangerous you're gonna be as you master this.
Yeah,
So,
I'm pretty excited to start doing this.
particularly on stream. Imagine, guys, y'all getting this kind of game for free. Shout
Yes.
out to Nick for sharing. Uh, but no, yeah. Is there anything you want me to clarify, or anything?
Um, I don't think so. I think I understand. Here's a question. Should I do like my first 3 I review in this depth, or would it be like I play a game, review in depth, play a couple, play like a 5th game, review in depth? Like, do I spread them out or all first 3?
No, I mean there should be training time, like where you're actually practicing the thing,
Okay.
and non-training time. So
Okay.
if you're in training mode, then you only do the process.
I see.
Because then the repetition just wires the brain a bit better. Now it's actually helpful it's actually, if you're doing this like an intense review, it's okay to actually take a second, like do some other stuff, just,
Okay.
in between.
Like save it
But
for later kind of thing if I need to.
well, more so do like, let's say, do something non-mons related. So if you're like, okay, boom, then you go, I don't know, look through Facebook or something, whatever,
Uh-huh.
something else. That break is usually when I don't want to get too, but there's something called neuroplasticity, which is just your brain, the ability of your brain to change.
Mhm.
And so your brain changes actually not when you're focusing on the thing, but when you're in rest. And
Okay.
so when you're sleeping, like when you're really focusing on studying or whatever, your brain generally isn't changing. And memorizing is different from changing, like the actual brain changing. But it's usually happening in rest, like actual sleep, or when you're doing something not related to the thing you were doing. So you're playing tic-tac-toe or talking to your girl or your wife or whatever, just like something unrelated to that thing. So when you come back, you can have those maybe 10-minute breaks in between, but you can also just both them. So both are fine.
Okay.
Just as long as you're not playing reckless, like you're not training and playing a really poorly executed game where you're not doing any of the process, then train, then then you're confusing the process. Like you're not really getting the full benefit. So you training and not training. Those are the only 2 categories.
Okay. That's actually really helpful because, yeah, that's, I had a stream, and one of the reasons I think I started to do poorly is I went for 4 hours, which I've never really played for 4 straight hours. By the end, I'm desperately trying to do the process, but I can barely keep my eyes open.
Nah.
But if I had separated and said, okay, I'm done training today, I'm just going to play for fun now, it would have been a different feel, and I probably wouldn't have burnt myself out so badly.
Yeah. Your
That makes
brain
sense.
can take so much. Like, don't try to do 4-hour sessions, please. You need that rest period for your brain to start like absorbing it. So you can make 2 alts, like Ninjak is your training alt, and then you're goofing around alt is something else. That way you're not impeding the progress on one,
Right.
So
That's okay. Yeah, I'll definitely have to do that. And then I can experiment with more teams because I get nervous switching up.
Yeah. I still think you should stick to things you're comfortable with for now, because just throw another wrench in the equation when you don't know how to use a particular mod.
Okay, yeah. I think that makes sense.
Hey man, this is not new thing coming up on the flies, tested.
Yeah.
More so, less so for you, but more so for whoever is watching, so they can realize, like, oh, this guy may know what he's talking about. It's like, got all this information from your failures, and so
Yeah.
I want to see you succeed.
Yeah. I do too.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for today's session. There was a lot of information, but I think there's a lot of value to be gained here. No pun intended.
No, I agree. And for those of you watching, it was funny. I had someone in stream say, they're like, wait, time out. Jam is your teacher? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, can he teach me too? I was like, well, I pay for this, but if you just watch me, like, you can get up to the higher points before you even need him. Like, I'm like, I'm doing exactly what he said. So, he is your teacher if you just watch what I'm doing and do it.
Technically, it's free, yeah.
But what's funny is, like, I can say that, and I know people are so resistant to change, they won't do it.
They won't.
And it's just like, he could be your teacher, but you have to let him.
Right. It is what it is. I want those who can benefit to benefit.
Yeah. So, please watch this, guys. This is a good point to wrap up, I think. Please, guys, please sub. I am trying to hit 100. Jamvad has graciously shouted me out a lot recently, and we've had I've tripled. I was at 20, so it doesn't mean a ton per se, but for me, that's a massive increase in subscribers. So thank you if you are one of those people. Please consider subscribing. We're trying to hit 100. Ultimately, the goal is 1,000 before, a year and a half. Jamvad promises me that'll happen, so please prove him right.
So easily, but yeah, keep going. So
please subscribe, guys. And if you haven't already, go check out his channel. Link is going to be in the description. This is where, he was talking about the team preview thing. I've purely gathered that just from watching him battle and seeing what he does and then trying to emulate it. So go check him out. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like and a comment, and I'll see y'all next time.
Peace.